Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sealand News Brief. This week, let's dive into interest rate because 30-year fixed rate went over 5 points. So this week, 30-year fixed mortgage rate is 5.125%. The last week, it was 4.999. And the 15-year fixed mortgage is a 4.25. Even fixed year of mortgage went over a 4 point. Okay, FHA 4.875 and 10-year treasury yield is 2.78. This is really phenomenon, but we're going to talk about that later. All right. Let's take a look at the first news. It's a New Jersey news. Recreational marijuana, cannabis, start selling this month in New Jersey. Finally, about a year ago, this law passed, and finally, New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission has approved 7 companies. Okay? And totally 18 dispensaries, means retail stores. And among 18 retail stores, only 13 stores got approved from the local municipality. Well, the commission approves, but also local municipality, like a local town government, like Palisade Park or Paramus, they have to approve as well. So far, 13 dispensaries, retail stores got approved from the towns. And these store includes Foley, which is operated by Ascent, company name is Ascent, Lodi, which is operated by Terra Ascent, etc., and Primus and Patterson, which are operated by GTI, etc. So Foley and Lodi and Primus, the Patterson, etc., these towns, now they will sell marijuana from the end of this month. Okay, and how much they can buy? So the regulatory commission specifies an adult over 21 can purchase 1 ounce per person, and anyone can possess 6 ounces per person. And what about price? Price of marijuana is about $10 to $20 per gram, which means about $320 to $480 per ounce. So 1 ounce is 28 grams. So I don't know, compared to a cigarette, I don't know, I'm not familiar with how to use it, so how to compare with the cigarette price. But anyway, if you want to buy 1 ounce, then you have to pay over $300 or $400. So that's price. So it's a reality now. It's our neighborhood. They start selling recreational marijuana. 결국 우리 주에 이제 뉴저지 내에 가까운 타운에 포틀리도 벌써 생겼고요. 그다음에 로다이, 프라이머스, 패러슨 이런 동네에서 이달 말서부터 마리화나를 실질적으로 이제 팔 수 있다. 물론 그 전에도 의료용 마리화나는 판매가 있었지만은 이제는 리크레이셔널 마리화나, 그러니까 담배 피듯이 사서 필 수 있는 마리화나를 이제 팔게 됐다. 그리고 한 번에 한 사람이 21살 이상 돼야 되고 1 온스를 살 수 있다. 그리고 집에 가지고 있는 거는 6 온스까지 가지고 있을 수 있다. 그리고 1 온스에 한 300불이 넘는다. 비교적인 값은 잘 모르겠어요, 그죠? 담배랑 비교해서 어떻게 됐는지 전 사용을 잘 모르니까. Okay, so it's a reality. Okay, next news is the mortgage rate become game changer in the residential market. more listings, possibly more listings will come out. The Korea Times, 한국일보, reported yesterday. I haven't seen any this nature of article yet, but we're talking about more listings coming out, and the house price will go down. We just talk about, but written article, this is the first time recently I saw. The 한국일보 says, according to realtor.com, new home listing increased 8% on April 3rd compared to a year ago, which was the first increase after continuous 4-week decline. That's what 한국일보 said, realtor.com reported. And nationwide home inventory is still 13% low compared to a year ago. And this increase means new listings. And the new listings increase with this pace till May. Total inventory might be more than last year level. Okay, generally this year we had a lower inventory level than last year, but if new listings added more with this pace till May, then maybe June finally will reach to the last year's level. And Redfin's had reported listing prices dropped 12% till April 3rd during the last 4 weeks. I don't know, we don't feel it, the price drop, but Redfin reported 12% listing price drop. Also, the report says the price drop is apparent for the house under $1 million price. And the mortgage rate increased over 5%, which is the first time for 11 years since 2011. Okay. So this is the first time actually written article says that price will go down and more listing will come out. Well, we can imagine a seller's point of view, those sellers who are thinking of listing their own house, when would be the good time? If they were thinking like that, then I think right now is the good time, because all indicators says this is the top price right now. House price is at top. So you want to sell now before house price drops. Okay, and so that's why the mortgage rate becomes a game changer recently, and hopefully more listings, and also listing price goes down. 지금 이런 이제 리튼으로 기록되어 있는 그 아티클은 지금 저도 처음 접하는데 한국일보에서 realtor.com이 리포트했다고 기사를 썼는데 좀 뉴 홈 리스팅이 4월 3일자로 8% 늘었다. 2월보다. 물론 아직도 전체적으로는 뉴 리스팅 말고 전체적인 인벤토리는 아직도 작년 대비 13%가 낮지만 밑으로 돼 있지만, 그러나 뉴 리스팅이 이런 페이스로 늘어난다면 5월까지, 그러면 토탈 인벤토리는 아마 하반기에서부터는 작년 레벨이 되겠다. 그 다음에는 뭐 더 올라갈지는 모르겠지만 아무튼 그런 상태가 되어 있고요. 레드핀이 보고를 했다는데 우리 로컬 지금 뉴욕, 뉴저지는 못 느끼는 것 같아요. 아직, 그죠? 스페셜리 팔팍 같은 데는 아직 못 느낀다. 그런데 4월 3일까지 한 리스팅 프라이스가 한 12% 떨어진 거로 나온다. 그리고 그 떨어진 게, 리스팅 프라이스가 떨어진 게 1 밀리언 이하 집에서는 더더군다나 많이 드러난다. 이자율 지금 5%가 넘었는데 이건 11년 만에 지금 처음으로 5%가 넘어갔다. 그런 뉴스가 들어가 있고요. Next news is a bit of office commercial market reports. office lease expiration pose risk to landlords. Wall Street Journal today reports a record number of U.S. office space is hitting the market this year due to a jump in lease expirations, putting property owners in a bind and threatening to leave banks and other lenders stuck with more troubled loans. Well, homeowners now, if the tenant's long-term lease expires, then the tenant is not going to renew the lease, or they're going to shrink the space. Then landlord becomes the trouble issue, because again, landlord has to pay the loan amount, the mortgage. Okay, so this becomes a serious issue. Some of office space landlords. So far, most landlords continue paying. Most tenants continue to receiving the rents even when their employees stayed home through pandemic. So simply saying, during the pandemic, still tenants were paying the rent, even though there are a lot of employees work at home. But now, as more leases expire, more tenants are shrinking their offices, obviously, because they do some hybrid plans, and that the blend office with remote work. For instance, right now, the leases for 243 million square feet of US office space are set to expire in 2022. It sounds like it's a serious number, but 243 million square feet. The space will be expired, the lease will be expired. The most office space to hit the market in a single year since real estate service firm JLL began tracking this data since in 2015. So from 2015, they collect the record, and this is most dangerous situation, the number. And the looming lease expiration represents a 40% increase since 2018. So right now is big commercial tenants lease expirations becomes a serious issue. And that poses a new threat for office landlords already frustrated by a stubbornly slow return to office rates. And the national vacancy level is of 12.2%. And so this is, according to Costa, it used to be 2019, the end of 2019, office vacancy rate is 9.6%, but now it's at 12.2%. And besides this vacancy rate, the lease expiration is piling up this year. For instance, we know Blackstone is really doing well in terms of investment, right? They got like a crowdfunding kind of a strategy. They got the $6 billion from the public, we know that, and they purchased rental homes, massive quantity of rental homes, we know that. But they got stuck with a office building in Manhattan, for instance. Even Blackstone kind of investor. And they got this building, troubled the Midtown Manhattan office building with $308 million debt. Because the tenant, L Brand, they decided not to renew the lease when it expired this month, or the last month. So it looks like even Blackstone has to give this thing to special service company. So that's kind of an example. So office market is not good as we expected, especially the big tenants' lease expires. 지금 당연히 웨어하우스 쪽은 뭐 엄청나게 좀 잘 나오고 있는데 오피스를 가진 랜드들, 빌딩 주인들은 지금 모기지의 문제가 지금 생기기 시작합니다. 전체적으로 올해에 익스파이어 되는 스페이스가 한 2억 2억 4,300만 스퀘어피트 미국 전체적으로. 그래서 지금 제일 큰 수지가 2015년 이후에 그런 스페이스가 지금 리즈 익스파이어 될 예정에 있다. 가뜩이나 지금 베이컨스 레이시 높은데 이러한 문제까지 지금 가중되니까 오피스 랜드들이 굉장히 힘들다. 그래서 아마 던져야 될 그런 상황이 올 수도 있다. 그렇게 잘 나가는 블랙스톤 경우도 맨하탄 한 빌딩은 가스닥 돼가지고 지금 빚처리해야 될 것이 3억 800만 달러다. 한 빌딩에 물려서. 왜냐하면 그 메이저 테넌트가 L 브랜드가 전번 달에 리즈 익스파이어가 됐는데 이제 리즈를 안 한다. 이렇게 결정이 됐기 때문에 한 예를 이제 보여주지만 오피스 빌딩의 랜드들이 굉장히 힘들다 하는 것을 우리가 단면적으로 알 수가 있겠고요. Next news is home builder find refugee in investors. Home builder, okay. In other words, they are favoring to the investors with a lot of funds. Okay? The investors who buy and then rent new homes are rapidly becoming a favorite customer of the home builder industry. Now the investors with a lot of money, they now start buying new construction homes and then rent. Okay. But before, majority of hundreds of thousands of new homes built last year were sold to individuals and families to live in. But rising mortgage rates are making those purchases much more expensive than could lead to pullback in demand by those traditional buyers. So traditional buyers now is shy from the purchase new homes and live in. However, investors holding billions of dollars are eager to buy these homes in bulk. Again, remember Blackstone purchased like 10,000 houses or 13,000 houses. But in this case, a little bit different. These investors purchase new homes, new constructions, and in bulk, okay? And a boom to new home builders who have increased construction in recent months. And for instance, large investors have amassed some 89 billion in capital to spend on building or buying new rental homes. So these large investors, they collected they prepared about 89 billion, so about $90 billion in capital to spend building or buying new rental homes. And now they spent only one quarter of it. So they spent so far, they spent only 25% of this fund. Still 75% fund are ready to buy rental homes, new rental homes. And the rental builders can often pay more for land because they are backed by larger capital sources. Build a denser community with more units and come in with plans to raise rent every year. Again, this is a kind of a phenomena I numerous times mentioned, rent going up. Okay, whether you feel it or not, rent going up all over the place. And even southern area right now, the southwest, rent are going up double digit. So 10%, 20%, like double digit. And they've been going up double digits for a while now. So for future few years, there will be double digit increase, rent increase we're talking about. So that's why those I mean, money guys, investors, they can smell money. So huge chunk of money, like $90 billion, they are ready to purchase new rental homes. Okay. 지금 그 빌더들이 전에는 이제 일반 그 실수요자들을 찾아서 많이 거래가 됐는데, 이제는 그 돈을 가진 그 큰 인베스터들, 그런 사람들을 만나서 지금 아주 컨스트럭션 인더스트리가 아주 신이 났다. 그런 지금 뉴스가 들어와 있고요. 그래서 지금 렌트가 계속 올라간다. 아마 인디비주얼 투자자분들도 이런 쪽에 신경을 쓰시라고 제가 말씀 많이 드렸는데, 이자가 쌌을 때 이제는 5%가 됐나요? 뭐 5%도 사실은 굉장히 싼 거기 때문에 compared to other times, we'll see a little bit later, 싼 거기 때문에 아무튼 그리고 또 이제 후반부에는 뭐 집값이 이제 또 내려간다고 하는 얘기도 있으니까, 그러나 렌트가 내려간다는 얘기는 아직 멀었고요. 이런 사우스 웨스트 같은 경우에는 매년 더블 디지트로 렌트가 올라간다라고 예상을 하고 있다. 그런 뉴스를 보고해드렸고요. Okay, now we want to talk about recession. Is it really we going to have recession or not? I think today's newspaper and couple of different newspapers, they speak about recession at the same time. And this 28% number is all over the place. So what is this 28%? Let's take a look at Economist survey by Wall Street Journal this month that the probability of economy, the recession, okay, being in the recession, sometimes in next 12 months, they forecast, okay, probability is now 28%. It's up from 18% in January. So January, they're saying 18% of probability goes down recession, or going into recession. But now, as of now, 28% probability for the recession. And 13 years ago, it was, a year ago, it was 13%. So a year ago, the probability of having the recession 13%, and January it was 18%, and now April 28%. Okay, it's basically a survey, but we'll see some theory later on. And so bottom line is because of that, the median economist in the survey projected that Fed will take the federal fund rate, we sometimes call reference rate, a federal fund rate. It used to be 0 point right now, and midpoint range to 2.15%. So right now, this federal fund rate is 0.25 to 0.5% right now. Okay? But it can go to 2.125% by the end of 2022. The Fed has to do that, and then 2.875% by December 2023. Whew. So next year, whole next year, 2023, we'll keep this federal fund rate, sometimes the reference rate we call, as high as 2.875% compared to now is 0.25 to 0.5%, the federal funds rate. And while recognizing the rising risk of the downturn, the recession, the majority of economists, about 63%, still think the Fed will be able to rein in inflation without triggering a recession, what economists call the soft landing. Okay, so still about 63, majority of economists will think, okay, the Fed will lead us to soft landing, not really hard landing. That means without triggering recession, without going into recession, the Fed will control the situation. So that's what they believe. 지금 리세션이 될 거냐 안 될 거냐 가지고 지금 굉장히 얘기가 많은데 지금 월스트리트 저널에서 한 서베이가 지금 28% probability로 늘었다. 이 기사가 지금 all over the place. 여러 신문에 지금 28%라는 숫자가 막 퍼지고 있는데 왜 그러냐 하면은 지금 이 확률이 28%로 늘었다. 근데 1년 전에는 리세션 될 확률이 13%로 봤고 그다음에 January 1월 달에는 18% 봤는데 지금은 이제 28%로 리세션이 될 확률이 늘었다고 지금 서베이를 보고 있다. 서베이가 나왔다. 그런 얘기인데 이 월스트리트 서베이가 좀 유명한 것 같아요. 많이들 이거 가지고 얘기하는 거 보니까. 그래서 다른 것은 경제 성장률을 뭐 이제 낮게 조절했다는 거고요. 지금 그런데 63%의 그러니까 우선은 Federal Fund Rate, 우리가 Reference Rate이라고 부르는 거, 한국말로 기준금리죠. Federal Fund Rate이 어디까지 올라갈 거냐 하면 2.125까지 올라갈 것 같다. 지금은 0.25에서 0.5%예요. 근데 그것이 지금 2.125까지 올라갈 것이고 2023년에는 2.875까지 올라갈 것이다. 그 Federal Fund Rate. 아시지만 Federal Fund Rate는 뭐예요? 이 Fed에서 일반 시중 은행에게 돈을 빌려줄 때 차지하는 인트레스트. 그거 얘기하는 거예요 지금. 은행은 이제 거기다 더 붙여서 일반인들한테 융자를 해주는 거죠. 아무튼 그러나 이코노미스트들의 63%면 머저리티라고 봐야 되는데 여전히 Fed가 리세션을 만들지 않고 인플레이션을 컨트롤해서 잘 진행해 나갈 수 있을 것이다. 즉 소프트 랜딩을 할 것이다라고 본다. 이런 얘기죠. 그런 우리 학자들이 63%는 그렇게 지금 생각을 하고 있다는 거죠. 그래서 여러분들이 리세션이 올 거냐 안 올 거냐 궁금해 하시겠지만 지금 여러 각도에서 보고들 있고 63%는 소프트 랜딩이 될 거다. 인플레이션을 잘 컨트롤해서 잡아서 소프트 랜딩으로 갈 것 같다라고 보고 있다라는 거고요. 자, 보면은 지금 컨슈머 프라이스가 지금 그러니까 consumer price in US up 8.5%. We're talking about inflation now. Okay, and inflation saw over the past year at its forecast pace in more than 40 years. It's the fastest pace in more than 40 years. So it's the first time this fast increase, inflation-wise, and the cost of food, gasoline, housing, and other necessities, squeezing American consumers and wiping out the pay raise that many people have received. And the Labor Department, they reported, let's take a look at the chart. We don't have much time. This is the chart. This is 1982, the famous inflation period, 8.4%. It's a Carter administration. It was crazy. And then we controlled it pretty much. And year 2010, inflation rate was really negative. And then coming up again and then going down. This is year 2000, about 2010, 2020, 2010, 2015, it was really low and generally low. Okay, and in fact, Fed wants, when we down here, Fed wants to increase the inflation by 2%. That was a target, but it went over a little bit and then went down because this time is Corona time, right? Okay, and then it picks up as recovery, the pandemic recovers, and some other issues combined, it going up and up and up, 6% and up. Now is 8.5%. So This is another peak since 1982. That's why we're talking about 40 years. It's the highest and the fast increase. Okay, so Fed has to control this. Okay, that's everybody's hope. By what? By increase federal fund rate. It will work or not, we have to see. And if we see category-wise, gasoline, this is average 8.5 line, but gasoline is a 48% increase. U.S. cars, used cars, 35%, and energy 32%, electricity 11%, food 8.8%, about average, and then apparel, the clothing, garment 6.8%, and shelter 5%, services. I don't know exactly what that, but anyway, this chart, different category has a different inflation rate. Okay, and so gasoline price again 48%, and the used car 35%, and the furniture 14% up, and the clothing and etc. Grocery process has jumped to 10%. It says. Including 18% increases for both bacon and oranges. Okay, and so Fed will be pressing firmly on the brake pedal. The brake pedal that means they're going to increase interest rate, and they're going to shrink the releasing fund. So they're going to shrink the quantity of the money in the market, and not just the pumping the brake. So not just the pumping the brake, but it has to really pressing deep brake firmly, okay, in an effort to slow demand and bring the inflation rate breakdown. All right, so everybody is looking for Fed, how they can control, so how fast they can increase federal funds rate so that they can control the inflation. 그 인플레이션 컨트롤하기를 다들 바라고 있죠. 지금 인플레이션이 에버리지 8.5%까지 올라가서 각 섹터별로는 좀 이렇게 나눠져 있고요. 그래서 페드가 지금 브레이크를 아주 심하게 잡아야 되겠다. 안 그러면 인플레이션을 잡지 못한다. 그런 지금 기대를 다 하고 있고 그렇게 이제 하게 되기 때문에 페더럴 펀드 레이트는 올라갈 수밖에 없다. 어디까지 올라가느냐? 페더럴 펀드 레이트는 아까 좀 전에 나왔었죠. 전번 뉴스에. 그래서 이제 하이 2점대까지 페더럴 펀드 레이트, 레퍼런스 레이트이 올라갈 것이다. Okay, so next news is, yeah, this is a little bit of a theory. Why we gonna go to recession, or why not we gonna go to recession? We are not gonna go to recession, etc. The gap between short-term and long-term U.S. bond yields are close to zero. Is a sign. I'm sorry. Today was I hurry up. Sign of recession. The Business Week, the Bloomberg Business Week reported April 4th. I collected this article for our meeting, and this is simply saying is a normal times yield curve runs uphill, means the 10-year Treasury yield. Okay, we're talking about 10-year Treasury yield, the U.S. government Treasury yield, okay, and a short-term 2-year Treasury yield. So one we call 10 years, we call it long-term, a 10-year or 30-year, or a 2-year, and we call short-term yield. Okay, so in general, longer-term yields think closely to. Okay, before that, in general, the yield we offer the treasuries with the longer maturities, meaning long-term yield, long-term treasury, like 10-year treasury, offer higher yields than shorter dated ones to compensate investors for risk of tying up their money for longer periods. So longer they purchase 10-year treasury yield, the treasury bond, then they give you higher yield, okay, because they're going to tie up their money for longer term. Then short term, usually yield is lower because they're going to hold only for short term, right? Usually. So definitely normal time, the longer the treasury yield is much higher than a short-term treasury yield. Okay, that's normal. But when longer-term yields sink close to or below shorter ones, it is a sign that investors are pessimistic about economic growth prospects, okay, and often portends a recession. Okay, if you look at this chart, you can see here that this is the gap. This graph is a gap between 10-year and 2-year treasuries. Okay, and here, look at this. This line is a zero. Zero means they're same. Okay, when they becomes about the same, there's a recession. And of course, the 10-year is higher. And then also close to this zero is a recession. And also here, the recession. This may be a little bit different. So we are here, okay, so it's about zero, means 10-year treasury yield and 2-year treasury yield becomes about same. If short-term yields, 2-year yields higher than long-term 10-year yields, a lot of people are saying we're in trouble, okay, because investors that much pessimistic about the market. But okay, if that, according to that theory and past experience, we gonna have recession. Okay, right now this is the situation. But Bloomberg Newsweek says reported that this time is not a sign of recession, and the yield curve may invert. Invert means changed, right? Short-term yield higher than long-term yield. Invert not in response to economic conditions, but as a reflection of a Fed policy. So right now it's happening because of not the market, the situation. That means it's not market is the pessimistic, but because Fed policy. Right now, the gap is this much narrow or close to zero. Okay, so we don't know a lot of this theory, but at least you should know what is 2-year treasury yield and the 10-year treasury yield. Why is it important? Because worldwide, the U.S. government treasury bond is the most safest investing. That's why the yield is very important. Good indicators about investors' psychology and whether it's pessimistic or optimistic. And meantime, this is also a phenomenon right now. U.S. 10-year bond yield is a 2.7798. You know that it's a high. When over China 10-year treasury bond yield. China treasury bond yield 10-year yield is 2.76. So now the U.S. bond is higher. Bond yield is higher than China yield. This is also kind of very unusual situation, and which they are reversed in 12 years. This means, what this means, U.S. bond yield is higher than China yield. That means China money will come to U.S. and buy 10-year treasury yield. Okay, so it is trouble in China. Okay, among other reasons, that the dollar coming out of China right now, but because of this, even it triggers more the dollar coming out of China, US dollar to the US out of China. 오케이, 지금 요거 투이어 트레저리 반드 왜 이게 중요하냐면요. 트레저리 반드가 미국 국채가 중요하냐면 전 세계에서 가장 안전한 투자가 미국 국채거든요. 미국 정부에서 개런티하니까. 그래서 2년 만기 국채하고 10년 만기 국채 이자율이 또 중요한데 보통은 10년 만기 이자가 더 주죠. 일드가 더 많죠. 왜냐하면 롱텀으로 돈을 묶여야 되기 때문에. 그리고 이제 숏텀 2년짜리는 이제 일드가 낮은 거죠. 그런데 경제가 불안하게 되면 이게 크로스오버한다. 그래서 그 갭을 표시한 이제 그러니까 10year treasury yield minus 2year treasury yield 하면 이 그래프가 나오겠죠. 그래서 지금 제로에 가까우면 문제로 느낀다. 왜냐하면 과거에 그렇게 되면 이게 한 번씩 이렇게 떨어지는 거죠. 지금 그러면 제로에 가까운다는 거죠. 그때의 리세션이 왔다는 거예요. 전부 다 과거에. 그럼 지금도 이게 떨어지면 둘이가 비슷해지면 아니면 오히려 투이어가 더 많아지면 일드가 그러면 이제 우리가 문제를 본다. 리세션. 그런데 지금 블룸버그에서 본 거는 아까 63%의 경제학자들이 지금 페드가 인플레이션을 잡을 수 있기 때문에 소프트 랜딩이 될 거다라고 예상을 하는데 블룸버그에서도 비즈니스 빅에서도 마찬가지. 지금의 이렇게 크로스 오버하는 거는 이런 경제적으로 문제가 있어서가 아니라 경제 심리에서 그런 게 아니라 페드가 지금 그렇게 방향을 잡아가고 있기 때문에 그 복잡한 이론은 우리가 안 하지만 그렇게 하기 때문에 그렇다. 그러니까 리세션은 아니다. 이렇게 비즈니스 빅은 보고 있다라는 얘기입니다. Okay, that's it for today. I think anybody really knows about economics in general can make a comment. Otherwise, we will see you all next week. Thank you for your participation. The public can be excused and seal lenders will remain.